What's up, guys? Hey, my name is Brian. I'm a small business owner, a real estate investor, and an avid side hustler. Welcome to my channel and to the future home of my grocery store. Guys, startups are risky, and investors and banks know that, and very few of them are willing to risk their capital on new ventures, especially if the person starting it doesn't have extensive experience in that industry. And that's why before you look for funding of any kind, there's one step you have to go through first. And most funding sources would require it anyway, and that is market research and writing a business plan. Market research is the process of reviewing consumer behavior and economic trends to decide if there's even a market for what you're wanting to do. I'm gonna do a real quick overview of the type of information you'll need to pull together, but if you wanna skip all of this and jump straight ahead to the funding ideas, just jump to the timestamped right there. Okay. So this is by no means a step-by-step guide to writing a business plan. It's just a quick overview. First, let's start by defining your target customer. Who are they? To do that, pull together demographic information and personality traits. That should include things like age range, income level, and their family situation, married, single, kids, no kids, their interests, and any other personal information you could think of that would help you get a clear picture of the customer you're trying to attract. And then once you have that clear picture of your target customer, now you'll need to look at the following areas. Market size. What is the population of your service area? What percent of that population falls within that targeted demographic that you just defined? For example, if you're looking to start a daycare center, wouldn't it be great to know how many kids there are in your service area? And then break it down even further. How many kids 0 to 5 with parents that work daytime hours that require daycare services? Next, economic indicators. What is the income range and the employment rate in your area? Basically, you're just trying to determine if your area can even afford the amount that you would have to charge to be profitable. I mean, you wouldn't open a Rolex store in a community that sits at the poverty line. Next, location. Where do your potential customers live, work, and play? Can you find a suitable, convenient location near them that's affordable? Market saturation. Are there already others offering daycare services? If so, is there room for you in the market? Or will you have a competitive advantage that would drive the customers to choose you over the other options? Pricing. Are your potential customers willing and able to pay for your services? So if you know that your daycare service would only be able to service 20 children, and you know how much it would cost to operate your daycare, with some pretty quick and easy math, you can determine how much you'll have to charge per child to be profitable. So are you even in the ballpark compared to the other options in your area? And if your prices have to be higher than those others, what is your competitive advantage? Why would they choose you over the other options, especially if you're more expensive? In short, how much do you have to charge to be profitable, and can you attract customers at that price? Demand. Is there a large enough demand for your daycare? I mean, if you live in a retirement community, there may not be much demand for a child daycare, but maybe you could open a senior center instead. Once you've done all of this homework, you'll have a really good sense of your potential market. So how can you find all of this information? In various ways. But I would suggest finding the nearest Small Business Administration office. Especially if you're a new business owner, that's probably the best first step for you. I'll drop a link in the description of this video. All you'll have to do is go there, type in your zip code, and it'll tell you the closest office to you. And if you have one nearby, they will gladly help walk you through finding all of the information you need. And if there isn't one, there are a lot of online resources that could help you figure out this information. And I would probably start with the SBA website. And yes, putting all this together will feel a lot like guessing. And in a way, I mean, you are. But as you gather information and start filling in those blanks, it gets more and more accurate as you go along. And eventually those guesses become more of a hypothesis or an educated guess. And once you're happy with all the information you've gathered, now it's time to put together your business plan. Your business plan will act as your guide from starting to operating your business. You could consider it sort of a roadmap of sorts. And it's really just a great project to walk through anyway, because it forces you to think through every single aspect of your business. And like I said, a good business plan will be incredibly useful when you start trying to raise money or bring in a business partner. Savvy investors will want to see that you've thought through everything. And they'll want to know when they can expect a return on their money. Your plan should help answer all of those questions. And while there's really no right or wrong way to write a business plan, there are some standard best practices that will keep you on track, and the SBA would be able to help you with that too. But again, if you're unable to find an SBA office near you, there are a ton of resources online, and you could even start with the SBA website. Now for the information you came here for. How do we find funding? That is one of the toughest questions that every entrepreneur will have to ask at some point in their life. Now, every business has a different financial need, and your business plan should help you determine exactly how much you need for your idea. And once you know that, now you just have to figure out how to get it. And the easiest way, number one, self-funding. Self-funding is exactly what it sounds like. It's using your own financial resources. With self-funding, you keep complete ownership and control over your company, but you also keep complete ownership and control of all of the risk. And starting a business is not normally a smooth road. When it comes to self-funding, always operate under the assumption that you will never see that money again. Now, that is a fine line to walk though. What I mean by that is you need to keep a positive mindset, but do not spend money that you can't afford to lose. Most people hold the bulk of their assets in two places: retirement accounts and home equity. And there are two things you don't need to lose, and that's your retirement account and the home that you're living in. Please be careful with self-funding. Number two, investors. 20 years ago, my mentor, who happens to be a venture capitalist, asked me a question. Are you sure you're ready to take outside money? At the time, I was a young, cocky entrepreneur wannabe, so I said yes. After hours and hours of conversation, he made me realize at the time, I was not ready. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. Your mentor was a venture capitalist. That's how you got started. You don't really have any idea how hard it is to get funding. Well, if you are thinking that, you'd be both right and wrong. I was and am very fortunate to have a venture capitalist as a mentor. But I didn't use him or any of his contacts to fund my business. As I matured, I realized I wanted to keep him as a friend and a mentor, and I really didn't want to ruin that relationship by losing his money. Taking outside money comes with some pretty serious pros and cons. And here are some of those aspects that you need to consider before taking that money. You will be giving up some ownership and control of the company. And if you don't have any money, it's likely that you'll be giving up all control of the company. Investors invest for equity or ownership. It's not a loan. Now, can you borrow money from individuals? Sure, but they're not investors. Then they're just loaning you the money. They're acting as the bank. Investors want equity. Your shareholders, your investors, they're your bosses in a way. They can and will exercise their authority if something's going on that they don't agree with. In fact, if your investors own more than 50% of your company, they could fire and replace you for any reason from your own company. Also, savvy investors will expect monthly financial reporting. And if you're not familiar with financial statements and reporting, you'll have to hire either a management company or a CPA firm to help you put those together. And they'll also expect to have investors meeting on a fairly regular basis, usually quarterly. And again, if you aren't familiar with financial reporting, you'll need that management company or that CPA firm to help you with your presentations. Those services, they're not cheap. But I will say, it is nice to have a third party between you and your investors. I consider it an insurance policy of sorts. My investors have no concern that I'm doing anything unethical with their money, because we have a professional accounting firm that's verifying and accounting for everything. Now, there are also some benefits to taking on investors. First, you'll have access to the funds that you need to get your business off the ground. And if the company begins to grow faster than your cash flow allows, your investors may be willing to inject more cash to capitalize on that growth. And also, your investor or the investors will probably be successful business people on their own. So you'll have mentors that are vested in seeing you succeed. Need advice? All you have to do is pick up the phone and call them. So if taking on investors sounds like the route that you want to take, how do you find them? That's the million-dollar question. There really is no one way to find an investor. From my perspective, it all comes down to relationships. When it comes to small business investing, the investors are not necessarily investing in the business. They're investing in the entrepreneur. Sure, they will need to see your vision and agree with what you're doing, but they're not investing in the business, they're investing in you. In some of my other videos, I suggest getting involved in the community, and I still think that's one of the best ways to do it. Go to community events, volunteer with nonprofit organizations. The movers and shakers of your community, they will be there. Shake hands, get to know them, make friends. You have to build their trust by showing them that you care for your community and you're willing to put in time and effort and energy to make the community a better place. And that's the easiest way, but it also takes time. In some cases, it could take years because you have to build trust. And you can't just show up on day one and have trust. There is a lot more to discuss on this topic than we have time for in this video, but in short, you need to be sure that the investors you're talking to are familiar with and understand the risk of investing in small businesses. You'll also need an operating agreement that explains all of the details of their investment and outlines the roles of everyone within the organization. I would also advise you to do a little financial discovery work on your potential investors. When I took on outside investors, I required them to prove that they had a $1 million liquid net worth. Now, why would I do that? Because the last thing that anyone needs is an investor that falls on financial hard times and either comes after you to get their money back or forces the liquidation of your company to get it. You want investors that are in this for the long haul and that are there to see you and this business succeed. The very last thing you need is someone trying to pull money out of the company when you're still trying to get it off the ground. Number 3, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is when you raise money from a large group of people, usually through a website or an app like Kickstarter. Crowdfunders aren't technically investors because they usually don't receive any ownership or equity in the company. And often, they don't expect any financial return of any kind. Typically, crowdfunders receive a gift in exchange for their contribution. Most often, that gift is the product that you plan to sell, or a special perk of some kind, like attending the launch party. Now, crowdfunding is a very, very low-risk option for you as the business owner, because not only do you get to keep full control and ownership of your company, but if it fails, you're typically under no obligation to pay that money back. Now, all crowdfunding platforms are different, so make sure you understand your full legal and financial obligation before taking any money from any platform. Number 4, small business loan. Getting a small business loan is not easy. Before applying, you'll need a rock-solid business plan with thoroughly built out financial modeling. Now, once you have your plan ready, you'll just need to visit all the banks and credit unions in your area and just see what they have available for you. Like we said, startup businesses are risky, and banks, they're not in the risk business. In order to get approved for a loan at a bank or a credit union, you gotta do one of two things. You either have to prove that you A, don't need the money, meaning you can pay it back even if your business fails, or B, pledge collateral. And I don't mean like your stereo system or your car or whatever. It's usually going to be real estate. And they'll only lend up to 80% of the value of that real estate. So if there's already debt on the real estate, more than likely you don't have much equity there. So if you can't qualify for a traditional bank loan, you'll need to look into number 5, the SBA loan program. The Small Business Administration, they work with a lot of banks to guarantee loans. Basically, the federal government is co-signing a loan for you. This guarantee limits the risk, if not completely reduces the risk for the bank, which makes them more willing to consider approving you. However, SBA loans have a ton of requirements, and a lot of banks don't like fooling with it. And it's also pretty difficult for you, the borrower, to meet those requirements, but it's at least worth looking into. One of the main pros to an SBA loan is the interest rate. Since there's basically no risk for the bank, you usually get a pretty good rate. Number 6, small business grants. A grant could be the absolute best way to fund a business. Why? You don't have to repay them. It's free money. Nor do you have to give up ownership or equity in the company. I mean, it really truly is free money. But like anything that sounds too good to be true, it kind of is. Do they exist? Yes. Are you going to be approved? Probably not. But it's free. Why not try? Now, because it's free, competition is going to be stiff. There's only so much money to go around, and you're basically competing with everyone else that's applying for it. You will have to fill out a bunch of tedious applications. Grants are a long shot at best. And like I said, chances are you will not get selected unless you have some very specific qualification or situation that makes your idea incredibly unique. Typically, this type of funding is most often reserved for people that have some sort of disadvantage in society and that is starting a business servicing a disadvantaged clientele. Now, I'm not suggesting that 100% of the grants out there have this type of qualification, but I think you'll find that most do. Also, most of these grants will come with very specific requirements that you must adhere to. And if you don't follow their rules to a T, you could be forced to pay back all or at least a portion of those funds. Pulling together small business funding, it's a challenge. But if you have an idea that you believe in, you owe it to yourself and to your potential customers to give it your best shot. And like I said, this list is really just to help get you started. There are an endless number of ways to fund your idea. Be creative. Who knows what other ways you'll come up with to find the money? Don't limit yourself to traditional methods. I mean, let's be honest. Real entrepreneurs rarely do anything in the traditional way. If you set a goal and put your mind to working on it, you'll figure it out. Do not let lack of capital stop you from chasing your dreams. The money is out there and someone is willing to give you a shot. You just have to find them. Now, if you want to skip this whole process of raising money and walk into a functioning business that's already turning a profit, possibly with no cash out of pocket, check out this video right here for a method that could probably help you do just that. Guys, if you found value in this video, please take a quick second to hit that like button for me. And while you're there, you might as well hit the subscribe button and the notification bell too. I would sincerely appreciate it. Thank you for watching until the end. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.